Hi, hello everybody. Happy December, as today is Wednesday, December 1st. Um, see, there's at least one other person in here, so we're just going to give it a few minutes, see if we can get more people in here. As always, I do appreciate any and all likes and shares. I'm going to run things a little differently tonight. I do have four news stories. They're all basically everything is more or less comics related tonight. So in total, we do have five things to kind of go over. The first stop before I get into the actual news stories, and they're all from bounding into comics. I'm going to give a little editorial on something that, on the idea of what's been going on in the comics industry in terms of the subsidizing of comics from the U.S. government. Aside from that, the news stories we'll be covering tonight include a couple of stories from Arctoons Archivens, the Arctoons review, roundup, as well as they've picked up another title to add to their collection of titles they're doing. Let's see what else. What else are we going to be talking about from there? Let's see. Oh yeah, a South American-based comic book company, Stonebat, Argentina-based, in fact, Stonebat Comics will be doing original comics and graphic novels for Kamen Rider 01. Also, also on tap for tonight. Hey guys, Ree. Good evening, Mike. Hey, action. As always, guys, if you can help by liking and share, if you haven't already, if you can like and share the screen, see if we can get some more people in here, that'd be appreciated. Hey, would. Um. Anyways, getting back to what I was just saying. Also, Tim Daly, who did the voice of Superman on Superman the Animated Series from the '90s, the DCAU Superman the Animated Series, and some of the subsequent movies. He's come out in support of. He's apparently come out in support of the altering of the classic motto. So we're gonna take a look at that. But before we get to those news stories, I wanted to talk about something. We kind of alluded to it the other day when we covered the Ethan Van Sciver story on Bounding into Comics. He made the suggestion that the U.S. government was subsidizing DC and Marvel to help push, the woke agenda. We talked about how DC and Warner Media are partnering with the Biden administration to kind of push for the COVID vaccination. Um, and I was also watching a video from Tug earlier today. How about my son tried to stump me with a math question. 521 times 5, that's, I believe, 2605, my friend. I'm like, 2605, yeah. He's like, nah. I'm like, check it. He comes back, oh, okay, smarty pants. Yeah, I was pretty much able to come up with that, but anyways, so yeah, so we were talking about, and then I was also watching Tug, that umbrella guy came out with a good video earlier today. And I like it when Tug does this, when he actually does these sales analysis videos, where he actually looks at the sales numbers and the financial numbers of some of these companies. Today he was focusing in on IDW because apparently Hasbro is not too happy with them. So they're so unhappy with IDW at this point. They've decided to pull the GI Joe and Transformers. They've decided to pull, at the very least, the GI Joe and Transformers licenses, if not all of their life. So basically, the idea is IDW is most recently the company that's been publishing the comic books that are based on the Hasbro products. Stuff like G.I. Joe, Transformers, um, My Little Pony was mentioned as well. However, um, IDW has been losing money. Like for the third quarter of 2020, they lost like 3.4 million, I think, or something like that. But they basically they're bleeding money. And of course, as we also talked about, and I hope you guys are both still here. um, so yeah. So, anyways, so yeah, and I thought it was a good time to talk a little bit about that because it's kind of a 180. If you go back, like 70, well, started 73 years ago and then culminated 67 years ago. Yeah. You know, and I've talked about the Comics Code Authority before. The Comics Code Authority was brought about, you know, because the comic book industry did not want the U.S. federal government to start, forcing them to censor their books. Are any of us really here? ah, does anybody really know what time it is? From the song right there, Woody. Does anybody really know what time it is? Yeah. Well, anyway, so as a quick recap, back in like 1948, a psychiatrist by the name of Dr. Frederick Worthen started doing a study on comic books and their effects on juvenile delinquency, which culminated in him writing the book Seduction of Innocence. Um, you know, point out, one of his main targets was, of course, superhero comics, particularly claiming Superman was a fascist. Batman and Robin were involved in a gay love affair, a homosexual love affair, and there was, basically there was bondage fetishism undertones in Wonder Woman. Now, of course, a lot of people knew that that was the case with Wonder Woman, but so as parents started complaining and they took it to Congress, Congress was looking to possibly start censoring the comic books. And that's when, of course, the comic book companies, rather than let Congress do it, they decided to censor them themselves. You know, and that's how we got the Comics Code Authority. The state of time is relative to each individual. Yeah, I guess you could say that. So, anyways, as we now we fast forward to today, whereas there was a time when, the comic book industry, the publishers, the creators, they didn't want to have anything to do with 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 the federal government. They didn't want Congress telling them how to write their books. Now we fast forward to today, and they're like basically in bed together. You have a lot of these mainstream comic companies like Marvel, and of course, IDW, in particular, getting help through the PPP, um, project there. So, and we know that, of course, Ethan Van Sciver, we read the article the other day that he talked about how how Congress and maybe the Biden administration were subsidizing Marvel and DC to push their woke agenda. We saw more propaganda in terms of more propaganda, as there was that article we saw about how the Biden administration was teaming up with DC Comics and Warner Media to push the the COVID vaccines. Now the thing is, if you guys were here, you saw I was going ape doo doo on that, because it's like Superman. First off, his Kryptonian DNA probably makes him immune to COVID to begin with. I'm that's what I feel like I'm guessing there. But also, it's like, Superman doesn't need to wear a mask, doesn't need to be vaccinated, because it's not going to hurt him. But, anyways, so the idea that government now is getting involved, getting their hands and showing influence in these industries, the entertainment industries, and particularly comics, it is kind of a little disconcerting. And that's why, of course, you have a lot of more of the independent creators starting up. We have a lot of the projects coming through Indiegogo and Kickstarter and all that. Tug, of course, did some stuff. Chris Tomolovich, Rick Piper, Ethan Van Sciver. We, of course, recently know that Gabe Eltabe recently left. I think it was DC or something like that, because he was just not happy with the whole change in the but yeah, it's kind of like government should just stay out of the comics. Creators should just create good stories and not try to push agendas. I mean, we had Kelly Sue DeConnick sit there and tell us, well, if you don't like my politics, don't buy my book. And that's exactly what people did. That's what people did. And then she turns around and starts crying, oh, people aren't buying my book. I wonder why. A lot of these people, a lot of these twidiots, a lot of these woke twidiots are basically they're basically trying to push their agenda and make their agenda sound cool. The thing is, though, is that they're not bleeding cool. They're bleeding fools, bleeding money. Tug's video earlier, when I saw it, he showed how IDW was losing money. They had lost, I think, 3.4, I don't know if it was thousand or millions or something like that, in the third quarter of 2020, and then this last quarter, I think they lost 2.1. They were celebrating that because, well, we didn't lose as much. But as he pointed out, a lot of the reason was because they were bolstered thanks to the government coming in and subsidizing them. This is IDW. He's talking about IDW and how, but because they're because they're another company trying to push the woke agenda, because they're losing money because of that. What's that saying we've been saying for the last year or so? Get woke, go broke, right? And this is just another example of that happening. IDW is not bleeding cool. They are bleeding fools, bleeding money. So, I think a lot of these mainstream companies that think woke is cool need to get their heads out of their rear ends if they really want to survive. Because even Tug was saying that IDW may be on IDW may not be with us much longer as a publishing company. And I know Yellow Flash has talked a lot about how maybe within the next 3 to 5 years, DC and Marvel may not be around as we know them. These companies are going out of business because they're choosing their own personal politics over making money. They're decrying they're decrying capitalism, and it's just sitting back expecting people to just give them money, and life doesn't really work that way. So anyways, that's my 2 cents on the subsidizing of comics that we've seen in the last year or so. So yeah, but you guys might want to, if you guys are interested in the number side of it, I recommend you go check out Tug's video on it. So it was a pretty good video. So, anyways, so with that, why don't we go ahead and get started on some of these news stories here tonight? Because, I said this is pretty much comic focused tonight. All the things we were talking about were comics. But last night it was primarily anime. We did have a comic story in there and a animation story in there. So tonight it's pretty much all comics. So here we go. Go with the first story of the night I wanted to cover. And I've been, and we've even seen some of this on CBR as well. They were talking about this too. But here's, I think, a more detailed article on this particular thing. Kamen Rider Zero One to receive original comics and graphic novels from Argentina-based Stonebot Comics. Article by Spencer Cooley, published yesterday, so November 30th. Okay. In an apparent response to the growing Western Kamen Rider fandom, Kamen Rider Zero One will soon receive a series of original comic book and graphic novel stories courtesy of Argentina-based publisher Stonebot Comics. So Stonebot is basically looking to do the comics for like the West, right? First Kamen Rider Zero One, Episode 1, I am the president and a Kamen Rider. Toei. So this is based on, of course, these comics are based on the current Kamen Rider Series Zero One. As announced by Team Kamen Rider, Bandai's official Kamen Rider outreach group, and Shout Factory, the home media company behind a number of Western toku releases, including the first ever official Western release of a Kamen Rider series. In the upcoming Blu-ray collection of Kamen Rider Zero One during the November 27th, which was, of course, past Saturday, San Diego Comic-Con 2021 special edition joint panel, Stonebot Comics will see to, quote, the creation of an original comic book series and graphic novel set in the Kamen Rider Zero One universe, unquote. So the TV show, the live action TV show, proved so successful that they're gonna translate that to comics. That sounds pretty interesting. Oh, getting on with the article here. Outside of the collaboration's existence, little else about the series has been revealed to the public. A silence which Team Kamen Rider attributed to the fact that the approval for the announcement apparently came only 30 hours prior to the panel. The first series entry of the newly christened Reiwa period, Kamen Rider Zero One, tells the story of a world populated by Humagears, AI machines which exist to serve and assist mankind with everything from construction work to everyday chores. However, when a cyber terrorist group begins turning the Humagears into monsters, Arudo Hiden, the CEO of the company responsible for the machine's creation, takes it upon himself to take on the role of Kamen Rider Zero One in order to fight back and protect humanity against the forceful takeover of his technology. Look at that. Initialize! Kamen Rider Zero One, Episode 45, The Future of Each. So, Stonebot Comics' Kamen Rider Zero One project will be a Western adaptation of Japanese material, given South America's absolute and respectful love of Japanese media. The results should be, at the very least, interesting. So, I take, and we know Joe Bennett, who is let go from Marvel, who's now with Arctoons. He's from South America. He's from Portugal. So, and we've heard that yes, they do have a much more. They seem to have much more respect for the original material than a lot of the Wokieits here in the states. Um, let's see. Alongside these original works, Stonebot Comics will also be producing the English localization of the Toshiki Inoue Kamen Rider Agito, Kamen Rider 555, written and Hitotsu Yokoshima, Bateran XX, illustrated, Kamen Rider Kuga manga series, which is currently set for release sometime in 2020, which we talked about yesterday, of course. Here's Source Kamen Rider Zero One, Episode 1. I am the president and a Kamen Rider. What do you make of Kamen Rider Zero One receiving a new set of Western penned stories? Let us know your thoughts on social media or in the comment section. Well, it sounds like it could be very interesting. Let's see what South America can do with Japanese properties. All right. So with that one being done, let's see. We'll get ready to move on to the next category. So I hope you guys are enjoying the content thus far, including my editorial earlier about the subsidizing of the comics. All right, so here's the next story we're going to look at. Arctoons adds classic Bible stories to its growing collection of digital comics. Article by John F. Trent, published earlier today. So yeah, this is what I was talking about. They're adding another comic book series to their already growing digital library. The founder and lead editor of Archaven Comics, Vox Day, announced the digital platform Arctoons added a brand new series to their growing collection of digital comics, Classic Bible Tales. Day made the announcement on Gab. He stated, quote, Archaven has added Classic Bible Tales to Arctoons, unquote. Quote, this is not something you're going to see DC, Marvel, or Webtoons do anytime soon, or most likely ever, unquote, he had, which I believe is true, okay? considering how woke DC and Marvel are, of course, one of the groups that they're trying to erase from existence is Christians. They don't like they don't like Christians. So rah. Yeah. So they made the announcement. Okay. Oh yeah, we already read that part. Um, Parables Jesus told. So imagine that. Imagine growing up as a Christian and then having comic books actually, being able to see some of the Bible stories in comic form. That would be a very interesting marketing tool, particularly to get kids more excited about Christ. You know, so the first episode, "The Two Builders," is available to read on Arctoons right now. It visualizes Jesus' words as recounted in Matthew 7:24 through 27 and Luke 6:47 through 49. As noted by the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops, the parable is called "The Two Foundations." In Matthew, it reads, quote, "Everyone who listens to these words of mine and acts on them will be like a wise man who builds his house on rock." Okay. Jesus continued, quote, "The rain fell, the flood came, the winds blew and buffeted the house, but it did not collapse. It had been set solidly on rock." Unquote. Quote, "And everyone who listens to these words of mine, but does not act on them, will be like a fool who built his house on sand." Unquote. Christ said. Quote, "The rain fell, the floods came, the winds blew, and buffeted the house, and it collapsed and was completely ruined." Unquote. He concluded. So yeah, I'm sure if you've ever been to church or anything, you probably have heard that parable before. So the idea that Christ should be the rock of your faith. Um, the parable in Luke is also called "The Two Foundations." It begins, quote, "Why do you call me Lord, Lord, but not do what I command?" Unquote. Quote, "I will show you what someone is like who comes to me, listens to my words, and acts on them." Unquote. Jesus continued. Quote, That one is like a person building a house who dug deeply and laid the foundation on rock. And the flood came, the river burst against that house, but could not shake it because it had been well built." Unquote. He said that imagery actually reminds me of the opening for the 1966 Dark Shadows series, which I've been watching lately. So just kind of been quote. "But the one who listens and does not act is like a person who built a house on the ground without a foundation. When the river burst against it, it collapsed at once and was completely destroyed." Unquote. Jesus concluded. The first episode that is available to read on Arctoons was originally published by the Standard Publishing Company back in 1947. 1947, that's like 74 years ago. It was illustrated by Anthony Bruzzo and edited by Dorothy Faye Foster. Now, this is still prior to Comics Code Authority, but they probably didn't have as much of an issue with this one, obviously. I would think. I don't think parents would have had an issue with this particular comic. It was included in a comic titled Parables Jesus Told, Pound 2054. Other parables included in their comic are Parables by the Seas, The Wicked Servant, The Good Shepherd, The Good Samaritan, The Importunate Friend, The Rich Fool on Being Invited to Feast, The Lost Sheep, The Lost Coin, The Lost Son, Parables about Prayer, The Householder with His Servants, The Parable of the Vineyard, The Parable of the Wise and Foolish Maidens, and The Parable of the Talents. And of course, for those who are into money management, The Parable of the Talents is a good one. It's like idea you have I think three servants. Each of them is given a certain amount of money. Two of them go and invest it and bring back more, but the other one buries his talent, and then gets scolded for not doing anything with it. So it just goes to show you, which the moral of that story is don't let your talents go to waste. So Standard Publishing Company also published a number of other Christian comics, including The Life of Christ Visualized, number 1 through 3, The Life of Esther, Visualized, The Life of Joseph Visualized, and New Testament Heroes, number 1 and 2. There you go. As for Dave's claim about Marvel, DC, and Webtoons not publishing Christian comics anytime soon, it's most likely true. Again, because they're pushing the leftist woke agenda, which has no room for Christianity in it. You have to remember, these people, one of the things they're pushing, of course, is a pro LGBTQ plus agenda, which does go kind of counter to the teachings in the Bible. If you've ever read Leviticus 18:22, where it says in there, for a man to lay with a man as a man lies with a woman, is an abomination before the Lord. So, Marvel Comics recently had one of their devout Catholic characters, Nightcrawler, from the X-Men, renounce his faith, murder a man, and attempt to start his own mutant religion. It shouldn't surprise anybody. However, Marvel Comics used to publish Christian comics. Back in December 1992, they released The Life of Christ, number 1, by Louise Simonson, Mary Wilshire, Bill Anderson, Tom Smith, and Bill. And I think we've also saw before Marvel. One of the other books that Marvel did was The Life of Pope John Paul II, I believe. They also did that one. So the book told the story of Christ's birth in Bethlehem. Are you looking forward to checking out Arctoon's classic Bible tales? Might be interesting to check out. So there we go with that one. Let's see if you guys are saying anything. Oh, now somebody took off on us for a moment, I guess. Um, at least according to the StreamYard counter. And now the YouTube counter's catching up. Ah. And now we're back up to 3, so that's cool. All right, so we'll get ready to move on to the next article here then. Unless you guys have anything you want to say about what we've talked about thus far. Guys have any more? You guys have anything you want to add to the conversation here on what we've read so far? Whether it's about subsidizing comic books or the Common Writer 01 news there, or even what we just read about the classic Bible tales. Give you guys a moment to, if you guys want to comment on that. Nada. All right. Well, I guess I'll move on to the next article then. Here we go. Superman voice actor Tim Daly supports the hero's updated motto, and they quote him saying, "I like it." So, Tim Daly, for those of you who may not know, remember, when Bruce Timm and Paul Dini and Dwayne McDuffie started to establish the DCAU in the 90s. Of course, one of the shows, in the follow up to Batman the animated series, they brought out Superman the animated series in '96, and that ran from '96 to 2000, ran for basically 3 seasons. Tim Daly was cast as the voice of Superman, but was busy when they were getting ready to do Justice League. Therefore, he was replaced in Justice League by George Newbern. However, he has on and off come back to voice Superman, like in Superman Brainiac Attack, some of the DCAU movies. I think now he's no. I think as far as I know now, he may be retired or may not doing the voice of Superman as much on some of those projects. I think his son has taken over the voice of Superman. So, anyways, let's get into this. DC's updated motto for Superman, which has him now standing for truth, justice, and a better tomorrow, as opposed to the American way, has a supporter in the Man of Steel's animated series voice actor, Tim Daly. Now, mind you, this is the one. This is the one again from the DCAU, series. Okay, because he's had a few other people. Superman has been voiced in animated form by a number of people over the years. I mentioned George Newbern for like Justice League and a few of the other. It was even in an episode of Batman Beyond. He was voiced by Christopher McDonald, and then earlier incarnations he was voiced by Bud Collyer in the Fleischer cartoons as well as the Filmation cartoons. Danny Dark in Super Friends franchise, and Bo Weaver, I believe, in the 1988 Ruby Spears Superman series. So, just a quick update on that. So, anyways, let's see what Mr. Daly has to say here. In a new interview, Daly told Bleeding Cool that he likes the new one as it belies how Superman has transcended borders and become meaningful to so many people around the globe. So Daly's apparently a globalist. Quote, "I like it," he said. Quote, "Superman has expanded beyond the borders of America." and he's admired by the world audience. So I think a better tomorrow is a beautiful sentiment, perfectly Superman, so I like it. Yeah, that might end up getting him losing about half his fans. Um, Daly may be okay with the changes, but it has been met with disapproval from others, with a link to the character, including former Superman actor Dean Cain and Superman son of Kal-El colorist Gabe Eltabe, who we've talked about here a bit. In fact, Eltabe said as much in an impassioned message discussion um, to the DC honcho he disclosed in a recent vlog. Yeah, and we were covering those stories too here. Um, so, and I'm back down to one viewer. This counter's kooky. Hey, toys, Woody, you guys still here with me, man? Anyways, um, they think of the updated motto as a betrayal of the character's essence and the sacrifices of those in the country that spawned him, such as his creators, Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster, who toiled and never made a dime off Superman in their lifetime. Mm-hmm. Yeah. In fact, if as you all know, DC is trying to sever ties completely with the Siegel family, so they don't have to pay them. That's why they're trying to kill off Clark again. They're putting more of the focus on Jonathan Kent as Superman, so that they don't have to pay the Siegel family um, what they're owed. The proper royalties. And that's another thing that will likely get them put out of business too after a while. Still, Daly looks at the transnational stature Superman has nowadays. Though surprisingly, he does tie it back to the Man of Steel's reflection in the American psyche. Quote, I didn't realize when I was doing the animated series how important Superman was. Not just to kids for a Saturday morning cartoon, but to adults, unquote. He told Bleeding Cool. Quote, Superman has wheeled his way into American collective consciousness, and I think he represents something that an anthropologist could possibly describe better than me, unquote. That might be true. I mean, Superman is probably is for DC property. Superman is iconic. Let's not take that necessarily away from them. They're just screwing a lot of people over in the process. Quote, there's something in US human beings, something in us human beings that longs for the attributes that he has, unquote. He added, almost everybody has had dreams. Sleeping dreams are active dreams of flying, having superpowers, and saving people, unquote. And, quote, being a force of good, unquote. And yes, I'm sure we've all had that, and certain different degrees and stuff like that. We've all donned our like blankie cape and pretended to fly, and even some people have even taken it to an almost insane level and actually tried to fly, gotten themselves hurt for it, a la Mick Foley. Of course, that wasn't a case of him trying to fly like Superman. It was more of a case of him trying to fly like Jimmy Snuka. Anyways, you guys still here with me? Further, Daly noted, quote, it's gratifying that people are still clinging to that. As dark as Batman is going, Superman's still just a being who is not vengeful or bitter or angry. And I think that's what makes their relationship such an iconic one as well. Superman and Batman serve as two sides of one coin. Batman's kind of the darker half of that coin, and Superman's the lighter half. So that's what makes that relationship such a dynamic one. Let's see. He's just trying to help humanity be better. Unquote. This sentiment goes back to George Reeves' portrayal of Superman in the 1950s, which Daly himself and countless other baby boomers grew up on. And like them, Daly considers Reeves a favorite for how the late actor's time in the Cape embodied the concept of the American way. Quote, this was kind of awesome, unquote, Daly said. After discussing the, quote, psychologically dark, quote, shift Batman underwent since Adam West. Well, okay, let me point something out though. Originally, Batman was dark, okay? And we'll see that more when we start reading more Batman stories from the Golden Age. He was dark. He was dark in the very beginning. Yes, during the Silver Age, partly due to the Comics Code Authority. You know, as he was still having his adventures throughout the 50s, and they were making the transition from the Earth 2 Batman, the Golden Age Batman, to the what would become the Silver Age Batman, the more campy version of Batman that Adam West portrayed in the live action show in the late 60s there. Batman though was awesome. So he's making it sound like, oh, it's like all like, oh, suddenly it was probably a surprise for that generation when Batman went back to his dark roots. But you know, but to act like, oh, Batman has never been dark is shows just your level of ignorance there on the character. Anyways, he would add, quote, but that Superman remains the sort of beacon of light and goodness, and I like that about him. I think we need that more than ever at this moment in time, unquote. Well, in a way, yes. But, as some of these woke celebrities and woke twidiots, what they seem to not get or understand is that the reason Superman is such a good character like this, because he was raised by Americans. His rocket ship crashed in Smallville, Kansas, in the DCU, found by Jonathan and Martha Kent. You know, to Kansas farmers who embodied a lot of what America was at the time. Good, hardworking family folk. You know, they raised him to do good. They raised him to use his powers to help others. That's a part of America we've seemed to have lost. And all this divisive divisiveness that we've been in. The idea of helping your neighbors not because the government compels you to or somebody's ordering you to, but because it's on your heart to do so. That's the America that Superman embodied. When we talk about truth, justice, and the American way we're talking about is what Superman grew up on. Not, and there's not to be confused, of course, with the Superman Red Sun story arc, where it was an Elseworld title where, well, what would have happened if Superman was raised in Russia, okay? But in the main continuity, Superman was raised in the Midwest, where you have good, hardworking folks, simple and neighborly. He was taught to love thy neighbor. He was taught to help people where he could. So for them to sit there and tell him to, for them to applaud, him saying the American way, just tells you the darkness of the hearts of these twidiots, these woke idiots. The American way that, now granted, I know a lot of people are talking about how, well, the American way part of it was added during World War II to drum up American support, and that is true. That is most likely true. Originally, and you guys know this because we've been reading some of the very early Superman stories. Even the very earliest of Superman stories, he wasn't necessarily the nice guy we come to know. Okay, he was he'd go as far as kidnapping people. He in one, if you guys remember, in one story, he forced a industrialist to actually partake in a war as a soldier, and basically have the guy put his life on the line to teach him a lesson about manufacturing weapons. We had the most recent story we had. He basically kidnapped a backup player on a football team to take his place. He basically kidnapped him, drugged him, and the like. So, the Golden Age in particular was a pretty dark time to begin with. But you also have to remember it was a depression too. People were dealing with a lot of real issues there. And of course, the counter is saying 0. That's not cool. But anyway, so when we talk about the idea of truth, justice, and the American way, what Superman meant when they put that on Superman, it was based more on how he was raised in America with values that respected life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Not the Communist Manifesto, where Jehovah is God and not the government. Anyways, it's saying that 0, but that's kind of baloney. Kind of baloney in terms of the view count. Anyways, all right, YouTube's being screwy again. Anyways, let's continue with the article here. Let's see now. He would add, quote, but Superman remains a sort of beacon. Okay, and that about him. Okay, yeah, I think we read that part, so I guess I'll. All right. The remastered Superman animated series that aired on Kids WB is available on Blu-ray and to stream via HBO Max. And I know that because I think we did cover that article from Critical Blast as well earlier in the month or last month here. Um, that series is out on Blu-ray now. Um, what do you make of Daly's thoughts on Superman's updated motto? Let us know your thoughts on. Well, I think he's a little misguided. Granted, he may not be. I think he's not bashing America like others have, but I think he's still missing the point of what America Superman actually represents. And it's not necessarily modern America with all this divisiveness. So that I think is the real issue there. All right. So with that, and that one got through pretty lengthy there because I, had a lot more to say about that. All right. So we have one more article to get through here. Oh, in fact, why did I even unshare that? I could have. I didn't need to unshare it. Didn't even need to unshare that screen. All right. So, anyways, we've got one more article to go through, and it looks like we're coming up on an hour. Yeah, so let's see how. All right. So now we got the latest. We've got wow, what wow. That's a face you probably don't want to find in a dark alley. Arctunes Roundup, December 1st, 2021. Article by the Dark Herald, published December 1st, 2021. Welcome back to the Arctunes Roundup, bounding into comics semi-weekly look at some of the best new webtoons that Archaven Comics has to offer on archaven.com. This week, we'll be looking at a couple of new series in My Sister Suprema and Bob the Bobbies, as well as Arctunes' most popular title, Hypergamouse. My Sister Suprema by Chuck Dixon. This webtoon is meant to be a comedy, but the plot revolves around my own greatest childhood nightmare. A young comic book fan has a plan for achieving his dream of getting superpowers of his own. Tragically, the execution of his plan has the worst possible outcome a little brother can dream of. Ah, storm coming. No, rumble. No, storm coming. I'll kill him. I'll make him buy me a new phone. Then I'll kill him. Oh boy. Chuck Dixon has picked an engaging age difference for the siblings. They appear to have been closer when they were younger. His sister probably helped bring diapers and rocked him to sleep when he was a baby. And though he was likely more doll than brother back then, it was still a close relationship. But as she begins to grow, she has moved on to proper teenage pursuits, and as such has left him behind. Adolescence is never easy for anyone, but it can be especially lonely if a sister you are close to suddenly doesn't want you in her life anymore. You little cockroach! Yet, at the same time, the siblings discover something they share that will forge a new connection between them. Wait, did I do that? Whoa, after all, she will need an expert on superpowers. Bob and Bobbies by Wise Path Brooks. This is a children's webtoon as and is intended for Christian families, though any child is a welcome reader. Long time ago in an unexplored universe, there lived a humongous star named Bob the Sun. Bob wanted friends, so one day he shot out solar flares, which became little balls of fire. He named them Bobbies. Now, the funny thing about this too is Bobby is also a term that's used for like a English police officer. So it is a very simple version of what was always meant to be a very simple story meant for literally everyone. The Bobbies replied, "We can't go far from Bob. He told us to keep close so we stay warm." Barry questioned, "What?" Hypergamouse by Lacey Fairchild. A humorous look into the relationships between men and women, which is frequently one of the funniest things on earth to begin with. Hypergamouse stands as Archaeven's most popular web. Yeah, this one does look kind of funny. While said relationships are frequently some of the funniest things on earth to joke about, you would be hard pressed to explain to anyone outside the human race why we think these things are hilarious. No! How dare you? I'm never talking to you again. That's fine. It's still no. No! Things are going great. I think I could marry him. Hee hee. I can't quite put my finger on it, but he completes me. Oh, look at it. Hi, Virgo Mouse. Regardless, Lacey Fairchild has done a superb job of establishing her characters with very little dialogue, including Mari, the lead mouse, who is always trying to help her friends find that special someone. Do you really not get why people don't like you? Apex, who has no trouble finding someone special. So this weasel walks in. "You are so funny. Ha 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 ha." His girlfriend, Mindy, who is trying to keep anyone else from putting their hands on him. Target acquired. Target acquired. Yeah, this very anthropomorphic comic book looks cute. And Doof, who believes he is so special that no one is worthy of him. Later, what do you think? Pretty stylish, if I say so myself. It's striking. Is that a sword? I'm not sarcastic. I'm just intelligent beyond your understanding. Okay? Let's take the word for that. It's the only one. I guess they must have all nodded. The guys must have nodded off there. Uh, but now Hypergamouse is entering a new phase. Mari's redheaded friend and Stoke, who, to be absolutely clear, can be seen on the right in the pool, have expressed mutual interest in each other, at least to their friends in private. He's actually kind of cute. The redhead right there is, I guess, the one they're talking about. Mari, or Stoke, rather. He's nice too. Ugh. However, whether or not they can get this message across to other remains to be seen. He's supposed to be really smart. Yikes, that's too bad. That's it for this week's ArcTunes Roundup. If you would like to see your comic book on ArcTunes, please send your submission to submissions@arctunes.com. ArcTunes' motto is that great stories belong to the world. So if you would like to support the website, please consider buying a subscription. While Archaven titles on ArcTunes will forever remain free to all, independent creators operating on the platform will soon have the option of being directly supported by their patrons. See you next week. All right, so that's pretty much it for the news stories. Let's see. If anybody even came in? No. We're just past the hour mark here. I'm going to go off camera for a moment. I'll be right back. All right, is there anybody still here? Well, all right. Anybody else still here? Hmm. All right. So, anyways, well, as much as I don't like to do this, it was still kind of on the early side here. So, I guess I'm gonna start to wrap up a bit as we basically have nobody else here watching. Um, a reminder, of course, Friday night is the historical comic retrospect. Hopefully, Batgoat will be with me, but I don't know. He hasn't. I haven't had a chance to ask him the last couple of days here about if he's going to still be in town or not. But hopefully he'll be here. If he has decided to go on his vacation early, I'll try to find somebody. Aside from that, is everybody ready for this day in each history? And I'll just start to wrap up here. All right. Well, without any further ado, let's get started. Let's take a look back at this day in each history on this first day of December 2021. Let me just look up real quick a few things here. 1996 and then 2011. Okay. All right. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and look back on this day in each history. Today being Wednesday, December 1st, 2021. Let's go ahead and take a look back at this day in each history. Our first stop, we're going to go back 80 years ago today, as on this date, 80 years ago today, um, the 25th, well, Smiling Jack number 25 went on sale on this date in 1941, 80 years ago, or the approximate on sale date, anyways. So, a note about this particular comic or comic book series, it was from Dell Comics. Large Feature Comics is the unofficial name given to this series of unrelated one-shots. The name Large Feature Comic is derived from the covers of issues number 25 to 30. Issues are listed under the indicia titles. A second large feature comic series began in 1942. So I think this is kind of a take on what we've been looking at with David McKay publications when they had the feature book, which was still running around this time, I believe, as well. So on this date in 1941 here, the Smiling Jack number 25, which was the 25th issue of this large feature comic book series, went on sale on this date in 1941, 80 years ago today. It sold for 10 cents. It was 48 pages. So, anyways, moving on to the next piece in each history. On this date, 60 years ago today, Billy White Wolf would defeat Nikolai Volkov in Portland for the NWA Pacific Northwest Heavyweight Championship. Now, Billy White Wolf is one of many names that was used by professional wrestler. His birth name was Adnan bin Abdul Karim Ahmed Al Kasi El Fardi. Most fans would probably remember him best as either General Adnan as part of Sergeant Slaughter's entourage during his heel run in the early 90s. Is somebody basically the American turncoat. In the AWA, he was known as Sheikh Adnan Al-KC. And then as Billy White Wolf, of course, aside from winning the NWA Pacific Northwest Heavyweight title, he was also a former WWF World Tag Team Champion. So, on this date, 6 years ago today, Billy White Wolf, also known as Adnan Al-KC, would defeat Nikolai Volkov for the NWA Pacific Northwest Heavyweight Championship. Then we move on now to 1996. That will be our next stop. As on this date in 1996, which was 25 years ago today, The Simpsons aired the episode A Millhouse Divided, where Millhouse's parents would divorce. So this was the Simpsons episode where Millhouse's parents divorced. So on this date in 1996, A Millhouse Divided premiered on that night, which was which was a episode of The Simpsons. So, in which Millhouse's parents divorced. Okay. So, anyways. And the last piece of anyway, so we got one more piece of niche history to do here. We go back 10 years ago today. As on this date, 10 years ago today, in 2011, the Toei Animation OVA special, the One Piece special, One Piece 3D Gekiso Trap Center, premiered on this date in 2011, 10 years ago today. One Piece 3D Koshi Trap Coaster, rather, premiered on this date 10 years ago today. So there we go with that one. All right. So, anyways, Anyways, I hope that when the people were here, they enjoyed the content. Um, and hopefully, I'll see everybody back here tomorrow night. And I do appreciate any and all the likes and shares. Thank you again. Bye.